The Glimmer of Hope. In a small, forgotten village nestled at the foot of a great mountain range lived a young woman named Mary. She had always known hard work. From sunrise to sunset, she toiled in the fields, tending to the crops and helping her family with every task they could manage. Life was simple, but it was hard, and despite the challenges, Mary had always found joy in the beauty of the land and in the presence of her family. However, that joy began to fade as the seasons turned cold. The crops failed one year, and then the next. The village's economy began to crumble, and many families, including Mary's, struggled to make ends meet. To make matters worse, a sickness spread throughout the village. It began with Mary's father, and soon the illness claimed not only him but many others in the community. The once thriving village was now shrouded in despair. Mary's heart grew heavy as the months passed. She could no longer find the peace she once had in the fields, nor the solace in the warm embrace of her family. Each day seemed darker than the last, and each night felt longer. Even prayer, something that had once been a lifeline for Mary, seemed to go unanswered. She would kneel beside her bed, whispering to God, asking, "Why, Lord, why is this happening? Why have you forsaken us?" One particularly cold evening, after a long day of tending to her sick mother, Mary went for a walk through the village. The streets were quiet. The only sounds, the crunch of snow beneath her boots and the occasional wind that howled through the trees. She made her way to the old church at the edge of the village, a place she had often visited in the past for comfort. The church, with its tall steeple and old wooden doors, stood as it always had, though now its stained glass windows were cracked, and the roof seemed to sag under the weight of the years. Mary entered, feeling the familiar stillness surround her. She knelt in the front pew and bowed her head. The silence was overwhelming, and for a long time she didn't speak. Then in that stillness she felt it, an almost imperceptible warmth, a light that wasn't of the sun but something deeper. It wasn't visible, but it seemed to fill the room, gently embracing her heart. A whisper seemed to echo through the silence. "I am with you." She opened her Bible, unsure of what she was looking for, but feeling the pull to read. The pages fell open to the book of Isaiah, to a verse she had read countless times before, but this time the words felt different. "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Psalm 34:18. Tears began to well up in Mary's eyes. For the first time in months, she felt a flicker of hope, small like a single candle in the vastness of darkness, but it was enough. It wasn't the answer to all her questions, nor was it the end of her suffering, but it was a reminder. God had not abandoned her. Even in the midst of her pain and confusion, He was near. He was with her. As she sat there in the pew, the weight of her burden seemed to lighten just a little. She felt, for the first time in so long, that perhaps God's promises were still true. She wasn't alone in this fight. God was beside her, even when she couldn't see His hand at work. Over the following weeks, the glimmer of hope that had sparked in Mary's heart began to grow. It wasn't an immediate miracle, but little by little her perspective shifted. She found herself praying again, not in despair, but with trust that God was hearing her, that He was working in ways she couldn't see. She began to notice small moments of beauty in her daily life. The sun shining through the snow-covered trees, a bird singing outside her window, the smile of a neighbor offering a helping hand. These were the small gifts of grace, the signs of God's presence, even in the darkest of times. One day, Mary was walking through the village when she saw a group of children gathered outside trying to make a snowman. They were laughing and playing, their cheeks red from the cold, their hands numb from the snow. As she watched them, a thought occurred to her. Hope isn't something that appears all at once. Sometimes it's a seed that is planted in the smallest of moments, a smile, a word, a quiet prayer. She joined the children, helping them build the snowman, and in that simple act, something shifted in her heart. The joy of being with others, of sharing in their laughter, brought a new light to her spirit. The village, which had once felt suffocating in its sorrow, now seemed to offer glimmers of life, like the smallest rays of sunshine breaking through the clouds. As the months passed, the village slowly began to heal. The sickness faded, and though the challenges remained, the people of the village found a renewed sense of strength. Mary's family, too, began to recover. Her mother grew stronger, and Mary's faith deepened. She had come to realize that even when life seemed most uncertain, even when the world felt dark and broken, God's hope was like a steady flame, unseen, but ever present. Mary's life was not free from hardship, but she had found something far more precious than the absence of suffering. She had found the quiet assurance that God was with her through it all. And with that, she found the courage to face each new day, trusting that His light would guide her, even in the darkest of times. The village, once a place of despair, became a beacon of hope for others. And Mary, who had once felt so lost in the darkness, became a witness to the power of God's faithfulness. How, in the midst of trials, his light would always shine through, even if only as a glimmer at first. This story highlights the Christian belief that even in the midst of suffering and uncertainty, God's presence is always near. Hope may start small, like a flicker of light in the darkness, but with faith, it grows into something that can sustain us through life's challenges.